Political Realism, Freud, and Human Nature in International Relations. The Resurrection of the Realist Man by Robert Schuett. For Suzanne. Preface. This book seeks to contribute to the growing body of literature discontent with how realist international political theory is often portrayed in international relations. Recent scholarship has provided insightful accounts of the philosophy of political realism, its timeless virtues, and its ethical depth. Although still considered the politico-theoretical tradition advocating pure and crude mocked politique, it has been shown that such power apologetism has nothing to do with the moral imperatives of the genuine realist international political theories of the likes of Morgenthau or Hertz. The same applies, I shall think, to Waltz and Mearsheimer. In this thriving revisionist literature, however, one of the most controversial concepts in the sciences and humanities, haunting humankind at least since the Greek sophists, as well as its perhaps greatest demystifier, have been neglected: human nature and Sigmund Freud. To lay the cards on the table, this book's re-examination of the concept of human nature in 20th century / contemporary realist international political theory, with special reference to Freud, is broadly sympathetic to all three themes concerned. In light of the rise of structural accounts of international relations, or the third image, in light of what appears as the strange death of the concept of human nature in political realism, my argument is that realist international political theory should not be severed from its ancient and intelligent concern with human nature. More positively, the concept of human nature should be the sole philosophical basis of political realism and its analytical and normative forays into social reality, that is, the political reality of international relations. This anthropological turn must not be seen as a conservative endeavor, for the genuine political realism a la Morgenthau is neither immoral, crudely naturalist, fatalist, nor inherently politically conservative. The almost Pavlovian equation of political realism with conservatism seems the falsest of all prejudices, since realist international political theory is certainly compatible with the moderate left. Still, political realism must not be based on the more or less hollow concept of the international political structure, and the several otherwise distinctive realist international political theories flourishing under the broader and flexible roof of the realist Weltanschauung should recognize the intimate philosophical and politico-theoretical relationship between the concept of human nature and the international political. In the context of the increasing proliferation of different realist international political theories or political realisms, I argue that what should define the realist Weltanschauung is the philosophical belief that any theorizing of the actualities and potentialities of international relations must be based on the more prior theorizing of the actualities and, of course, potentialities of human nature, as it is shaped by powerful historical socio-economic forces. The classical realists knew all too well what Alexander Pope captured elegantly, which is of even more contemporary relevance given the global rise of faith-based politics. Know then thyself, presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man. That political realism and its classical style variant rooting in Morgenthau is enjoying a renaissance in international relations is to be welcomed, particularly since the irrationalities of political reality, ethnic nationalism, religious fundamentalism, moral universalism, continue to thrive with full force. Despite all efforts in seeking argumentative assistance from these earlier political realists, take Iraq and the analogies with Morgenthau's critique of Vietnam, the concept of human nature, long the philosophical basis of political realism and classical realists like Morgenthau, has escaped much attention. Even more, it has become a largely discredited idea in the study of international relations. Sympathetic not only of political realism, but also of the concept of human nature and Freud, this book aims at reviving what used to be the rule rather than the exception in realist international political theory, theorizing the international political based on the concept of human nature, making special reference to Freud, one of the truly consequential figures of Western thought, yet awkwardly neglected in international relations. Two important questions are explored. First, is the concept of human nature really dead in contemporary realist international political theory? And second, ought human nature to be dead in political realism? Examining a variety of realist international political theorists commonly invoked as the foremost proponents of classical and post-classical realism, I argue that contemporary political realism has not eliminated the concept of human nature from its study of international relations. Assumptions about human nature, though often hidden, are widespread, and several leading realists have used a Freudian conception of human nature as their philosophical backdrop for theorizing the tragedies of the international political. This then leads to the ought question. If the concept of human nature is not as dead as post-classicals would have us believe, should we seek to wipe it off realist international political theory? The concept of human nature, as I argue, ought not to be dead. Political realism requires a sophisticated theory of human nature as the basis of its Weltanschauung. Developing a philosophical anthropology for political realism, I see Freud as offering a most appropriate starting point for bringing back the concept of the realist man into contemporary realist international political theory, and that of human nature into the wider study of international relations. Philosophically, this book's line of argument grew out of my dissatisfaction with how and why an increasingly large number of realist international political theorists have moved post-classical political realism away from its original philosophical roots. This is not to denounce post-classical realist international political theory. No doubt, Waltz's achievement is beyond measure, and Mearsheimer's offensive realism is truly fascinating. But still, post-classical realism's disavowal of the concept of human nature has helped to impoverish political realism, which is not so much a technical social science of international relations, but an ethics of social and political reality. More technically, my argument for a central role of the concept of human nature in realist international political theory, and more generally in international relations, albeit understood not in crudely naturalistic terms, grew out of my doctoral work at Durham University School of Government and International Affairs. More or less intact in its original form of 2009, I hope the claims of this book will be of interest to scholars of international relations, social and political theorists, historians of political thought, as well as scholars of Freud and Freudianism. Over the past several years spent in the United Kingdom doing graduate studies in political science, focusing on international relations and international political theory, I have incurred many debts. Specifically, for advice and support at various stages, I wish to thank, though not implicate, in alphabetical order, Chris Brown, LSE, Anash Etashami, Durham, James Good, Durham, Clemens Jabloner, Vienna, Richard Little, Bristol, Sebastiano Mafatone, Rome, Peter Sturck, Durham, Stephen Turner, South Florida, Steve Welch, Durham, John Williams, Durham, Michael Williams, Ottawa. Likewise, for their support in making this book possible, I wish to thank, from Palgrave Macmillan, New York, Farida Kuhi Kamali and Robin Curtis, as well as the editor of this series, Peter Wilson, LSE. Further, I cordially thank Susanna Morgenthau, New York, for allowing me to use previously unpublished material from her father, Hans J. Morgenthau, as well as the Freud Museum, London, for permissions to use one of their Freud portraits. Yet I do owe my biggest debt of gratitude to my dear wife, whose unwavering support, refreshing optimism, and unbending tolerance has helped me pursuing my projects during both good and difficult times. I dedicate this book to Suzanne. Durham/La Jolla, 2010, Robert Schuett.